So Mem Ches, Mem Ches Amud Aleph, a couple lines from the top, the Mishnah, and really it's continuing from the beginning of the parak that gave us all the titles that said the whole list. Lulav Arava, Shisha V'Shiva, and then Halava Simcha, Shmona, Sukkah B'Nizachar Mayim Shiva. So far we spoke about Lulav and Arava, now we're going on to Halal and Simcha. Halal means to say Halal, which means the whole Halal every day. And Simcha means to be happy, the mitzvah to be happy on Yantif. And usually the way you're happy on Yantif is by eating korban shlomim, all kinds of korbanos, shalmei simcha, any kind of korban, meat every day. And nowadays that we don't have it, so the Gemara says someplace else that you could be mekayim in Gorm Psachim, that you could do that with any kind of simcha, wine, ksus nekiah, clothing, and the Mishnah talks about meat also maybe nowadays, but this chulin meat, it's not doesn't really say that, but originally it would be korban shlomim. So it's mitzvah to do that all 8 days. Halal Simcha Shmona, even Shmini Atzeres is also a mitzvah to say Halal Shalom, and also Simcha to be happy. And in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, that will be with Korban Shalom. Ketzad. The Chiddush is Shmini Atzeres. 7 days, it says Beferish v'samachta b'chagecha. But the Chiddush is that Shmini Atzeres is also included as a mitzvah to be happy on Yantif. Yantif Achron. Yantif Achron means Shmini Atzeres. Yantif Achron Shalchag is another what we call Shmini Atzeres. The last day of the Sukkot is Shmini Atzeres. It says here the word kavod, and that the Gemara is not going to discuss. I don't understand. We still spoke about halal simcha, and the Mishnah then throws in about halal simcha and kavod. It doesn't say that. There is a gear that takes it out, but nobody explains it. So I don't know. Yes, please.
I saw the Rashi on over Shabbos that there was 2 days ago. Remember that there's a Indian on Isser Chag to also make a suda.
Yeah, we saw that.
Is it actually that this?
No. Surely Yantif Achron means Shmini Atzeres all over the Shas, and here also Shmini Atzeres. That's an extra thing. They also eat something on Isser Chag, but that's not called Yantif. It's surely not Yantif.
What does it mean covered?
So covered usually means how do you do covered with clothing and but the mission what's that?
Staying with people nicely.
Maybe doing things that would honor the day, but the point is that doesn't say in the Mishnah anything about it, that it should say we learn from here they have covered also. It doesn't say it's al b'simcha shmona case. So it's case they're coming to explain the Mishnah. So why should it throw in something that didn't talk about? So I don't know. The Gemara talks about Benani Mili. How do you know? That's the question, because it only says 7 days. It says on the 7 days it says v'samachta b'chagecha. From where do you learn out that Shmini Atzeres also is chayv and simcha? It's a little interesting because nowadays the midrash that we're familiar with, it talks about the Shmini Atzeres is like the spitz. That's like the whole Seder of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. Still you come to Shmini Atzeres. That's like the height, the climax of the whole Chag. But in the Gemara, it doesn't sound like that. The Gemara sounds a bit that Shmini Atzeres is less than the other Yom Tov, and you have to have a chiddush that there's a mitzvah of simcha over there also. The way it seems to be in Mechokes Midrashim in the Seder of the Chagim, if Shmini Atzeres is secondary to the Chag, but the Shmini Atzeres is the peak of the Chag. Here the Gemara says, who says you chayv simcha Shmini Atzeres? The Tanu Rabbanan. Vayisach sameach. That's the answer there, because extra pasuk besides saying b'samachta b'chagecha, it also says vayisach sameach, extra riboy, and that comes to be marbe also Shmini Atzeres. The rabbis leil yantav achon shel chag. It's coming to be marbe that simchas that Shmini Atzeres also is high. The here throws in also the night, which Rashi says it means even the night. Even the night, you might think that only the day. So it says no, that even the night of Shmini Atzeres, right after the 7 days is over, Shana Rabbah is over, now you come to the night of Shmini Atzeres, that's also high. Rashi says Kal V'chomer that Shmini Atzeres also is high. And that's where you learn out from that's the extra pasuk of Vayisach Sameach, you learn out that Shmini Atzeres is also chayiv in Simcha. The Rashi says, who says? Maybe it's coming to tell you the first night. It means even though it says chayiv in Simcha 7 days, maybe it starts in the daytime. Maybe the first night, the first eve of Yom Tov, maybe it's not chayiv. And maybe it's coming with truth. The truth is that you're not chayiv. And the Rashi says maybe this pasuk, it's a riboy, is coming to include that the first night is also chayiv. It's good to put in the word leile over here. Rashi has the word leile yontav harishon. Maybe it's coming to be marba that the first night of yontav is chayiv in simcha. The truth is that it's not. It's really marba Shmini Atzeres and not the first night. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe it's supposed to be marba the first night. No, kishu omer ach chala. It says v'yisa ach sameach, so v'yisa sameach would be a riboy. But ach is coming to minimize and say not everything. Something yes, something not. That not both. Only one of them is high, one of them is not. But you have a choice now. Is it the first night or is it Shmini Atzeres? How do you know to take a choice and say that Shmini Atzeres yes and the first night of Yom Tov not? If you have the two choices, which one are we going to come to be marba to include that there's a chiddush, that there's a mitzvah of simcha, The smaller chiddush is to say Shmini Atzeres, because once you're in the mode of Simcha, you're on Simcha already, you're on the Simcha level already for 7 days. So to extend it a little more to the 8th day is less of a chiddush than to say that you started earlier. So if these are the two choices, one yes, one not, so it's more mistabed to say that the Torah meant to continue the Simcha into the 8th day instead of starting it earlier. And that's the
Rebbe.
Yeah, 1 second. And that's the halacha l'maisa that you chayiv in Simcha 7 days and the 8th day, the 8th night and the 8th day, but there's no mitzvah of Simcha the first night. And that means that, let's say in times of Shalmei Simcha, you don't shech the korban before an Erev Yom Tov in order to have meat for the first night. There's no mitzvah of Simcha on the first night of Yom Tov. And that's halacha l'maisa. There's only a mitzvah of Simcha on the days. And even Shmini Atzeres, but the first night of Yom Tov, there's no Simcha. There's a Shagas Aryeh that says, based on the Gemara in Pesachim, that says when you have Dalit Kosas, if you have Yain Chai without diluting it, so it says you're not Yotzei Simcha. So he says, here it says you're not Chai in Simcha the first night. Over there it says you're not Yotzei Simcha with Yain Chai. It's much, but there is a mitzvah of Simcha the first night. So he says maybe with Rabbanan. He says a suggestion, maybe with Rabbanan, there's a Chiyuv the first night also. But with the Raisa, there's no mitzvah of Simcha the first night.
Excuse me, before Emmanuel, if I may ask, what does it mean that there's Simcha before him?
Before that, on the Shmini Atzeres, there's been Simcha before. It means that the 7 days.
Oh, Lefanav doesn't mean the day coming up. It means
before. It means
before. Thank you.
So it's a smaller chiddush to say that the Simcha, which was already there, continues. Shmini Atzeres has Simcha before, but the first night does not have Simcha before. It's a regular weekday, Erev Yom Tov. So we're marba the Shmini Atzeres, and we're not marba the first night. Yes, Rav Manuel.
Yeah, so what concerns me is only the structure of the limud. We're spending a lot of time in the Gemara to distinguish Shmini Atzeres as a regel bifnei atzmai and be different, totally different and new. Yet we're learning the Chiyuv Simcha as an extension, Ki'ilu Tafel, to Sukkos. So it's a Ki'ilu a stira, minei obey.
I don't see the stira. It says it's separate yantiv, and it's also right after the yantiv, so it's called Simcha Lefanav. That's all. That's all it says. It's true that it's a separate yantiv, and it's the mitzvah of Simcha. It says only initially on the 7 days, and then there's a ribui, so being mar, but the next chag also. And then the question was the first night or the 8th day. So we say that this is more mistaber because it's continuing after the Simcha of the 7 days. What's the difficulty? Even though it's a separate yantiv, but it does continue. The 8th day comes after the 7 days. I think it's okay. Okay, next Mishnah. Sukkah Shiva Ketzad. So now continuing, we said that we just finished the Mishnah about Halal B'Simcha Shmona. Then the Mishnah continued, the first Mishnah. We're always going back to the first Mishnah of the Perek. Sukkah Nisach Hamayim Shiva. Sukkah Shiva Ketzad. What does it mean, the mitzvah of Sukkah 7 days? So the mitzvah of Sukkah is only 7 days, and Shmini says there's no mitzvah of Sukkah. And Chusla they have a problem because it's a Sveik of the Yoma. So maybe the 8 days, really the 7th day. That's what we said yesterday. They sit in the Sukkah and you don't say a bracha. But here it's saying the mitzvah of Sukkah is for 7 days. What does that mean? Ketzad, we're holding here in Eretz Yisrael now. When you finish eating, even though you finished eating lunch on Shana Rabbah and no more meals till tonight. Tonight's going to be Shmini Atzeres in the house already. But you might think you could take apart your sukkah. So it says don't take apart the sukkah, even though you don't plan on eating there anymore. But don't take apart your sukkah. Keep up the sukkah for all 7 days. But you do have to get the house ready. Tonight Shmini Atzeres, and you can eat in the house. So do take the furniture down from the sukkah. You had the sukkah furniture, the table, chairs, you had all that, the bed, you had that in the sukkah for 7 days. Now you're going to need it in the house. So do take it down. Don't wait for Shmini Atzeres because it's not nice to come to Shmini Atzeres. The house is empty. So prepare the house from Mincha L'Mala, like Mincha Ktana, that's 2.5 hours before sunset. So then start taking down the things that you have in the sukkah for the 7 days. Bring it down to the house, the Kavod Yom Tov Achron, the Kavod Shmini Atzeres. But do keep the sukkah up, but the furniture take down. Rashi said, no yatir, don't untie. It is an interesting term. It says don't untie. As if you have like one of these prefabricated sukkahs, you tie it up. So it's interesting. Rashi does say the word aguda. If you have any knots over there, to untie the knots. If you make a wooden sukkah, so it means don't take it apart, don't disassemble it. It is an interesting term that the Mishnah uses. No yatir, don't untie the sukkah. So Rashi says, how come you shouldn't take apart the sukkah if you finished eating already? Because you still might need it. You might take a nap. You might want to eat something. So leave up the sukkah. Some say maybe even without eating it. It's a mitzvah to keep up your sukkah. It's a mitzvah to have a sukkah. Don't take apart your living room before you've finished living. So
excuse me, Rebbe. Is the Mishnah trying to teach that we might think that part of a day is like the whole day
No.
And so when the
No.
pasuk says 7 days, it means that you have to do something till the very end of the seventh day.
No. Surely, if you have to eat or sleep, everyone will agree that you have to do it in the sukkah. No one's going to say that since the beginning of the day I was yotzei, so the rest of the day I don't have to anymore. The din is to sleep. If you want to eat or sleep in the whole 7 days, you have to have it in the sukkah. That wasn't the havamina. But you might think that I'm not going to use it anymore. I don't plan on using it anymore. Rashi says like that. Rashi says you might sleep. You might want to go sleep. You might want to eat. So therefore, keep it. Here's the Rashi over here. To sleep, to learn, to eat, whatever might happen. So leave the sukkah available in case you'll need it. So that's the halacha. So you don't think about the sukkah on Hoshana Rabbah, but do take down the furniture, whatever you need for Shmini Atzeres, min ha-mincha l'mala.
Is there any problem with, is there any problem with somebody like, I hear like Sfardim, but anybody could do it. They go on a teal and they take some palm fronds with them and they make a sukkah to go to the beach or wherever they're going, and then they can eat in there. And then they disassemble. Is there a problem disassembling?
Okay. This is the sukkah that's in your house, and you need a sukkah until at night. So yeah.
Is it possible that they can make a bracha?
I would think so. The Mishnah said, the Gemara says, "Ein lo kelim lo mahu." Interesting question. The Gemara says right away that the way it says it doesn't make sense. But we'll take the words first and see the Gemara's question. It says, "What if you don't have any furniture to take down? What do you do?" So what's the kasha? You don't have. What's the problem? But the Gemara says, even ein lo kelim. The Gemara doesn't even understand what does it mean you have no kelim. What do you use in the sukkah? You have nothing in the sukkah. I'm not sure what the question is exactly, but the question wouldn't make sense from many angles. What's the problem if you have no kelim? What's the problem? But the Gemara explains the kasha is, what if you have no place to go to? Your sukkah is over, and now you're going home. You have no home. Usually you have a house. So you take it out of the sukkah, you go to Shmini Atzeres. But here the case is that he has no house to go to. So where's he going to eat on Shmini Atzeres? He's going to continue eating in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres. That's a problem. Because Baal Tosef, that you're not allowed to continue doing the mitzvah of sukkah more than the 7 days. If you're going to,
we're talking about a homeless person.
Yeah, but he has a sukkah. He's a sukkah's
He
person
has
without a
a
home.
sukkah. He has a sukkah. Now what does he do? Because he doesn't
Right, so he'd like to continue. The sukkah is a nice place. He'd like to continue eating the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres also. The problem is that maybe it's Baal Tosef. If he's going to continue from sukkah into Shmini Atzeres, he's making an 8-day chag. So you're not allowed to do that. So what should he do in order to show that the sukkah is not anymore a mitzvah sukkah? So the Gemara gives a couple of bases. Open up the schach 4 tvachim. Rashi says that's going to make the sukkah puzzle, and now you could continue eating the Shmini. It's not a kosher sukkah anymore. Taisvis as a kasha that you don't need 4 tvachim to make it puzzle, even 3 tvachim will make it puzzle. And somebody Shalom explained that even if you don't make it puzzle, like a case where you don't make the whole poches means to take down the roof. That means like to lessen, to take off, make it cave in, take away from the sukkah 4 tvachim. So some say that it means 4 by 4 tvachim, even though the sukkah is not puzzle. It's only puzzle if you make, let's say, 3 tvachim down the whole sukkah. So then that one wall that's already separated, so you're missing that wall. But if you just make a hole in the schach 4 by 4, so don't sit under there, but the rest of the sukkah can still be kosher. So they say that's what it means. That even if you don't make the sukkah puzzle, if you make the sukkah puzzle, surely it's good. Because it's not a sukkah anymore. And Rashi would be right, but you don't need 4 tvachim. 3 tvachim down the whole sukkah would make it puzzle. But even if you make a hole 4 by 4, even though the sukkah is still kosher, in a scenario, it's still that's enough to show that I don't want the sukkah for the mitzvah anymore. And that's going to be enough. It's a hecker. It's a way to show that I don't want the sukkah for the mitzvah. That's one answer. Light a candle. Light the candle inside the sukkah. What happened? So the Gemara told us earlier that the candle in a small sukkah, don't put the candle in the sukkah because that's dangerous. So that's not the way that you live in the sukkah with lighting a candle. So if you're going to put the candle inside the sukkah, that's going to show that I'm not using it for a sukkah anymore. Of course, be careful it doesn't catch fire. And if you're going to do that, so wash the candle carefully. But that's a way of showing a hecker also. It's not making the sukkah puzzle, but it's a hecker to show that I'm not using it for a sukkah anymore. And once you did that, they're allowed to eat their Shmini Atzeres because I already showed that I'm not using it for a sukkah anymore. The Gemara says, these 2 eitzes are not arguing on each other. One was to make open up 4 by 4 tvachim, and one was to light the ner. They're not arguing. Halan v'alahu. This is for us in Babel, in Chutz La'aretz, and Halahu in Eretz Yisrael. What's that? That's the end of that. What does that mean? Halan v'alahu. So Rashi says something that's questionable what Rashi means, but we'll say the Rosh, and that's maybe what Rashi means also, that there's a difference between Bnei Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz. The people in Eretz Yisrael, as we said, the last day of Sukkot is Hoshana Rabbah, and now it's coming Shmini Atzeres. So fine, they don't need the sukkah anymore. On Shmini Atzeres, they don't sit in the sukkah, but they want to sit in it because they need a place to stay. So they make the sukkah puzzle and they'll sit on it on Shmini Atzeres. But people in Eretz Yisrael, what's going to be their scenario? On Shmini Atzeres, they do sit in the sukkah. That's Allah. You said yesterday. Shmini Atzeres, Chus Loris, they sit in the sukkah Shmini Atzeres without a bracha, but they sit in the sukkah for the mitzvah. They do the mitzvah because maybe it's sukkahs. But their case would be over there that he wants the sukkah for what we call Simchas Torah. They need it for the ninth day. And over there, you can make it possible on Shmini Atzeres. What does he do? He finished using it on Shmini Atzeres, and now he wants to use it for Simchas Torah. He can make it possible because he can't take apart, he can't disassemble, he can make the roof, take apart the roof. Say we're not allowed to build, they're not allowed to demolish. So they're not allowed to take apart the sukkah. So then in Eretz Yisrael, if you have such a scenario, the answer would be to light a candle. On Shmini Atzeres or Simchas Torah, that you want to use the sukkah now not for a sukkah. After you finish your meal, light a candle, or on Simchas Torah itself, light a candle in the sukkah, on the small sukkah, and then you'll be able to eat in the sukkah on Simchas Torah. There's no avera to do that. There's an avera on Yantif to make the sukkah puzzle. Simchas
I
Torah
thought,
also.
wait a minute, I thought that this wasn't making the whole sukkah puzzle necessarily. It's four by four could be a part of the sukkah, and there's still some of it could be kosher.
The issue is that you're not allowed to take it apart. It means you're not allowed to, the same way you're not allowed to build, you're not allowed to destroy. So on Shabbos, Yantif, you're not allowed to take your roof and take it off. That's a isser to do because of the Molach on Yantif. So on Shmini Atzeres, if you want the sukkah to be available for Simchas Torah, both Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah, you're not allowed to take apart. It's Yantif, it's Yantif over there. So you're not allowed to, in Eretz Yisrael, when you're doing this, you're doing it on Shana Rabbah. Shana Rabbah is a weekday still. So you can take apart the sukkah. You're not take it apart. You can open up the sukkah. There's no isser because there's no isser malacha on Chol HaMoed. But here the case is that it's already Shana and Shmini Atzeres. He needs the sukkah to sit on. He's a kosher sukkah. He wants to make it possible now on Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah. It's already yantif. He can't do these kind of things, taking apart the roof. So it will be to light a candle, and that will be how he shows that he's not using it for the mitzvah sukkah.
Halan here means to light a candle.
Madlik Bosaner means lighting a candle. Lighting a candle, based on the Gemara before. The Gemara says earlier, which things do you put in the sukkah, which things out of the sukkah? The Gemara says the pots go out of the sukkah, the jugs of water to be in the sukkah, the candle out of the sukkah or in the sukkah. That's the Gemara a couple of pages ago, and the Gemara a long time ago. And the Gemara said in a big sukkah, it's not dangerous to be for the fire, put the candle inside the sukkah. If it's a small sukkah, put the candle outside. Right outside your sukkah, but it shouldn't catch on to the schach. That shouldn't catch fire. And the derech of a small sukkah is going to be to leave the candle outside. If he brings the candle inside, that's like a declaration. I'm not using it for the mitzvah of sukkah. Of course, the fire department says, be careful. Okay, I'll be careful. So he lights the candle inside the sukkah. That shows that I'm not using it for the mitzvah of sukkah. He's careful. He washes it with many eyes until it extinguishes. But he made his declaration, I'm not using it for the mitzvah of sukkah. Now we consider it on Shmini Atzeres or Simchas Torah, not for the mitzvah.
If he makes a declaration without the nail, it doesn't work.
No, you have to do something, not just a declaration to say I'm not doing it. You have to do something to show that I'm not doing it. It has to be something that's noticeable. Is it good? Is everybody clear with that?
I don't understand why the candle is the.
There's a Gemara earlier about the opposite Rashi. Let's get to the Rashi. We'll bring the Rashi in a second. Let's see Rashi.
Some people do like candles in the.
Oh, nowadays we like, yeah. So we like candle. We have a big sukkah. A big sukkah. The Gemara says, we'll see right away. The Gemara says, Rashi.
That guy has no sense.
Oh, the Gemara asks, he has no weight. So the Gemara asks, what does a person do who has a big sukkah? How could he? The Gemara says in 2 lines. That's Rashi brings the point. Matik Bosaner, the Amina and Dafchav Test. Straga b'sukkah ktana lebam mutalata. A candle. If you have a small sukkah, take it out of the sukkah. And the Gemara is going to soon saying, Rashi here brings down the Gemara again over here. Shraga, Amilab Mutalalta, Bamilab Mutalata. Some say the candle, like more over there in Chaftes. Some say put it in the sukkah, some say out of the sukkah. You have a sukkah, a big sukkah, bring it into the sukkah. A small sukkah, leave it outside. So the Gemara is going to ask, Ben's asking, what do you do if you have a big sukkah and you're in Chutz and you want to, what do you do? How can you make a sukkah possibly puzzle or not? I'm not using for the mitzvah sukkah. I can't put a candle inside. It doesn't show anything. That's going to be the Gemara right away. The Gemara does finish up over here. So for the Gemara said, the 2 Gemaras that said about Pochas Barabo, Madak Bosaner, that's not arguing. And for us, we could be Pochas Barabo. We can make it on Shana Rabbah, take it apart. But in Eretz Yisrael, they can't because it's ready Shmini Atzeres. What do you do? Madak Bosaner. The Gemara says, so you could make a putting a light, a flame inside a small sukkah, that shows that it's not for a sukkah. But putting a flame in a big sukkah is not allowed to, so it doesn't show anything. The answer is the Ma'il Ba Mani Mechla, bring in your pots. Bring in the Klei Achila. That's not a way to show that it's not a sukkah because you're not supposed to bring your pots into the sukkah. Anything you don't bring into your living room, the dining room, whatever's in the kitchen, don't bring into the sukkah. So the Amarava, Mani Mechla B'Amar Mutalata, Mani Mishtay B'Mutalata. Pots, kelim for food, you take out of the, or after you finished eating, it's a dirty plate. You don't leave that in the sukkah. Same way you don't leave it on your living room, dining room table. That's it. Mani Mishtay. You could leave it in the sukkah. The drinking vessels jugs and cups that's not nimas, you're not leaving in the sukkah because you do leave it on the dining room table maybe. But that's just agav the last 3 words. But the more wants to say that bringing pots into your sukkah, that's not that covered for sukkah. So by doing that, that's showing I'm not doing it for sukkah anymore.
I understand the pots. I understand the candle. The candle is because of sakana. The same sakana is on Shmini says is on sukkahs.
You shouldn't do it even on the weekday if it's a sakana.
Yeah.
So I tried to preempt it. I'm not sure if I did a good job. That of course, watch it very well. Stay there with your fire extinguisher until. But you're doing something to show that it's not the derech you do for the sukkah usually. But of course, make sure that it shouldn't catch on fire. But that's enough to show.
To me, it makes no sense.
Why.
The pots make sense, but this candle, if it's if you in chal mode, you can say watch it more carefully. But it's yontif.
We usually tell them don't bring it in. Everybody knows in a small sukkah you don't bring candles in. If someone's there with a candle and a fire extinguisher, we say, what are you doing? This is supposed to be out of the sukkah. So it's not the normal way of sukkah. It's enough to make a declaration that it's not doing it for the mitzvah of sukkah. But of course, be careful. The fire department says be careful. Agav also, that's agav, that this whole thing about catching on fire is nothing more of a farish. It's a Taisus over there. So I'm going with you that that's what the Taisus says, that the reason of the candle is because of the fire. I don't know another pshat. But let's point out that's a Taisus over there, and I'm trying to say a pshat. I'm trying. I'm not sure if it's good that do watch that it shouldn't catch on fire, but that's not the derech of a sukkah. So it's enough to be a declaration that it's not to the mitzvah of sukkah. Yes, please.
I think
Why is that? It's a question that Hatiyat is trying to say. If it's a candle on the smoke.
That the Gemara says before in that test that the candle does not belong in a small sukkah. It does belong in a big sukkah. So
Rebbe,
that's in the middle of explaining something. 1 second,
Yeah.
please. Small sukkah, you're not supposed to bring a candle inside. So if you do bring a candle inside, that shows that you're not doing it for the mitzvah of sukkah. A big sukkah, you do bring a candle. The whole sukkah, you had a candle inside the big sukkah. That wouldn't be a way to show that it's not a sukkah by bringing a candle inside. He has candle in there, the whole sukkah he had. So the way to show that it's not doing it for the sukkah is by bringing in a pot, a dirty pot. That shows that he's not doing it into the sukkah. On Shmini Atzeres, on Simchas Torah, that's going to show that he's not using it for the mitzvah of sukkah anymore. Yes, please.
yes, I think I share Dr. Fine's concern. I think what he's saying is, how can you make an official hecker out of something which is sakanta chamira mi isura?
So the answer is you take a fire extinguisher and it's not sakana.
Or you put in a glare in the, what do you call it, the menorah box.
Or you stand there with a cup of water and you stand there till the candle goes out and he's safe. But he's taking all the precautions, but it's still not the regular way to sit in the sukkah. And that's enough to make a declaration. I'm not doing it for the mitzvah of sukkah. Okay?
What is the word, Mom? Metalta?
Talalta, sukkah.
Metalala, how do you pronounce it?
Talalta.
Metalalta.
And it means a tail. It means shade. The shade maker. That's sukkah.
Bringing food in is a shade. So how does it go? The last 2 phrases?
Klei achila chutz mi'asukkah. Klei shtia basukkah. Food utensils out of the sukkah. Drink utensils in the sukkah.
Okay, thank you.
So what was this whole mission about? That sukkah is supposed to be 7 days. Don't take apart your sukkah till the end of Hoshana Rabbah. If you need it, use it. You said the Gemara before, even Hashmoshes, that's the reason why the 8th day also becomes us to benefit from it. That's a side point. But do take your furniture down from Mincha Ktana to the house in order you'll be ready for Shmini Atzeres. If you don't have a place to eat on Shmini Atzeres and you have to use the sukkah, show that you're not using it for the mitzvah, either by making a hole in it 4 by 4 tefachim, or in the small sukkah, there'd be an eitzah also putting a candle over there. Of course, be careful that it shouldn't catch on fire. And also another way is to bring in pots that show in a way that you wouldn't do that in the sukkah because it's not covered for the sukkah. If you're doing it, that's showing that you're not doing it for the mitzvah of sukkah, and then you'll be able to remain on your sukkah and Shmini Atzeres.
I thought you're supposed to stand
Only chutz la'aretz, because maybe it's sukkah. So we're talking about Eretz Yisrael, and then and then now we're talking about also in Chutz La'aretz, Shmini Atzeres, that you do want to sit in the sukkah, but that's Simchas Torah you want to stay in the sukkah also, and that's for sure you're supposed to be out of the sukkah already. So if he needs a sukkah to eat on Simchas Torah, so we'll tell him to do these eitzes in order to make a hecker that he's not doing it to the mitzvah. Right. That was the case with that. Right. That was how the Rosh explains this Gemara. Okay, next Mishnah. Nisach Hamayim Ketzad. The Mishnah said also Sukkah of Nisach Hamayim is 7 days. What's Nisach Hamayim? So this is the Beis HaMikdash. We don't have it nowadays. The Beis HaMikdash should be built soon, and we should be able to do it again. The mitzvah of Nisach Hamayim is libations of water. Ketzad. How do you do that? Now it's going to tell you how you do the mitzvah of Nisach Hamayim. Slochis shel zav machzekes shlosh luganay v'malim min hashiloch. He would fill up a jug, a golden jug that contains 3 lug. What?
No, it's a jug.
Sochus is a jug, Mamali is to fill up, and Machzek Shlosh Lugin, that it contains 3 lug. A lug is about a third of a liter, 3.345, a little bit more than a third of a liter. So Shlosh Lugin is a liter, approximately a liter, 1.2 liter. So you take a golden jug that contains about a liter. Mamali ben Shiloh. He went to the Shiloh to fill up the water, and then they came back to Yerushalayim. Yegiu l'Shamayim. They came back to the Beis Hamikdash. Shamayim. Well, Shamayim is one of the gates going into the Beis Hamikdash. It's on the southern side. And one of the reasons why it's called Shamayim might even be this. There's a question why it's called Shamayim, the water gate. Why is it called the water gate? Some say because that's where they brought the water for this mitzvah of Nisach HaMayim. They brought it through that gate. That might be the reason why it's called Shamayim. And Taku Bariyu Taku. They did Tkiyah to Tkiyah. We're going to see later on that there might have been the whole night before that might have been also a whole procession about the Simchas Beis HaSheva, which was in preparation for this. But here the Mishnah doesn't talk about that. It just says they went to the Shiloh, they got water, and they came back. They came through Shamayim and Tkiyah to Tkiyah. Eventually, they're going to take this up to the Kevish, to the Mizbeach, and as part of the libation by the Korban Tamid. The Korban Tamid Shal Shachar, in the morning Korban Tamid, besides all the Evorim that go on the Mizbeach, and also the Nisach HaMayim, Yayin, the regular libations of wine, there also was a libation of water. And this is the water that's going to be used for the water libation of Sukkot. Allah Bakevish, he goes up the ramp, he goes up to the top of the Mizbeach, when he gets up to the top of the ramp, he turns left. We're going to see the Gemara. Usually, when you go up the ramp, you turn right, but here he turns left because the place to do the Nisach HaMayim is on the left. When you're going up to the ramp, it's going to be on the southwestern corner, which is close to the Beis Hamikdash. I'd like to have a picture over here, but I don't have any pictures available to show on the screen. But if we know how the Beis Hamikdash looks, so you have the going up the Mizbeach, and you turn, and the ramp is on the southern side. You go up and you turn left. You're going closer to the west, and that southwestern corner is the corner of the Mizbeach, which is close to the Beis Hamikdash. You turn to his left. There were 2 bowls, silver bowls over there. On the southwestern corner of the Mizbeach, there were two silver bowls. Rabbi Yehuda says they weren't made out of silver. They looked like silver. They really were made out of sid, out of lime. But the reason they became silver colored is because they got blackened from the wine. Since when you pour wine onto the sid is white. But over time, the wine is going to make it a silvery look.
What is sid exactly?
Sid lime.
Why would it look like silver if it's getting blackened from the wine?
So it doesn't get black. It gets the white and the wine together will make a silvery look.
It would probably means that it's like a tarnished silver.
A tarnished silver. I would imagine that the silver in the Beis Hamikdash shouldn't be tarnished.
So
Lime is very abrasive. Lime is abrasive. It causes that to happen.
What is it called? Mushchorim. It's called mushchorim.
So Meshchorin from white until silver. I'm saying, I guess we could try it. Take lime and put wine on over it and see what color it gets. Okay, Tanakama says it was silver. Rabbi says it was not. People thought it was silver, but it wasn't really silver. And then it also had holes in it. These bowls had holes. They had holes in it. They had bowls. In the bottom of the bowl, there was a hole. Rashi here says the chotem. Rashi says the chotem is like kind of a spout. And Taisa says he doesn't see where Rashi got it from. The chotem doesn't mean a spout. Taisa says that most maybe means it was a little bit elevated in the middle of the pot, and that's where there was a hole. Taisa doesn't make the spout. Some of the pictures they saw Rashi's chant that there was a spout, but Taisa says he doesn't know where Rashi got it from. So the Pasha says
I do have. From my book, I took a picture of 2 pictures I can share.
Yes, please.
Okay. Can you see this? It was, it wasn't so good.
Bigger?
Right, it's too small. If you can make it bigger, right?
So here's the first thing: is there's Sharho. This is they call Shar Hamayim. I guess this is the rep. This would be the south side, and this would be the Shar
That's the
Hamayim.
ramp. And you go up to the left,
And over here, yeah, you're going to go up and go to the left, and they're going to be over here, and then over here it
Right.
shows. When you go up, you go to the left, and here are the 2 things, and here are the 2 bowls.
Okay, and they made the spouts pretty far away from the holes. I don't know why they made it so far away. But
What
okay.
these spouts?
The whole, yeah, they made the whole bowl very separated from the holes. They should have put it closer. I would have thought closer, but good.
Maybe they
So-
just. Well, I thought maybe you lift it up. I don't know. Yeah, it seems like it has to go in.
Rashi says that you put it into the bowl. It came out of the spout. It went onto the mizbeach. It went into the holes. Tais says he doesn't know where Rashi got it from. he says that it doesn't mean that, but the bowls were directly on top of these holes that go into the sheetin. These holes over there, they go down into a bore, which might be a bottomless pit. We'll see that later on. And that was under the mizbeach. These holes, the water and the wine would go through those two holes. Taisa says that the two bowls were directly on top of these two holes, and the hole in the bottom of the pot, at the bottom of the bowl. Would,
Oh, I see. With no spout,
no spout.
just on top.
Taisa says,
Okay, so
but this is Rashi.
Mukabin is what?
It has like a nekev, a hole. It had holes in it. Yashikar, thank you, like
So
that.
they would do the not wine and water together? Is that what we
There were
thought?
two bowls, and they poured both of them simultaneously into not into the same bowl, to two different bowls. One to the wine.
Right.
Yeah, good.
In how do you do wine dedication on one or two?
In one.
Oh,
One
so this is
that,
the first time we
only
see in
on
the whole
Sukkot.
year that we see that.
on Sukkot, only Sukkot did you do water,
Right.
and they didn't use the other bowl the whole year. They only used the one for the wine the whole year. On Sukkot they use both, one for wine, one for water. The top line says echad me'uva ve'echad dak, that these two holes, one was a bigger hole than the other. They didn't make the holes the same size. One was a bigger hole than the other. In order that both of them should empty out simultaneously. The Gemara is going to talk about why weren't they simultaneous? Why, if you pour the same amount into both bowls, why should they not empty out simultaneously? But it says one of them had to be bigger. We'll see the Gemara soon. The one closer to the west, means closer to the base of Mikdash, was the one for the water, as Lev Yaakov showed us. The one on the east, a bit further from the base of Mikdash, that was the one for the wine. If you did the wrong one by mistake, you pour the water into the one for the wine into the one for the water, you're supposed to do it this way, but if you did it the wrong way, you're still Yosef. Yehuda argues on 2 points. Before the Tanakh Kama said that you need Shlosha Lugin. 3 Lugin, which you said is about a liter. According to Yehuda, it wasn't a liter, it was a loaf, which was about a third of a liter only. And also not 7 days, he says, Kol Shmona. Tanakh Kama said, Sukkah of Nisach Hamayim Shiva, everybody says Shmona. So it's arguing on 2 things. One is that it was only a lug, not 3 lugin. And this, what? We had it, right. And right, the Gemara said, how many differences between Sukkot and Shmini Atzeres? The Gemara said Sukkot Lulav and Nisach Hamayim. According to Rav Yehuda, only 2, because he says the Nisach Hamayim was on Shmini Atzeres. So here it says that's not close. You pass like Tanakh Kama that it was 3 lugin and it was only 7 days, not the 8th day. To the one who was doing it, the Kohen who was pouring this, we would tell them, pick up your hands, do it from higher. Everyone should see that everyone's around the Mizbeach, everyone was around in the courtyard, that they told the Kohen, lift up your hands. Why? We want to see how you're pouring it into the bowls, because there was some Tzedukim that didn't want to do it. One time there was a Kohen that didn't, he was a Tzeduki, and he didn't want to put it into the bowl because he doesn't agree to the whole thing. He doesn't know, it doesn't say in the Torah, it's going to be a Torah Shabbat Peh, and they didn't agree, they didn't subscribe to the Torah Shabbat Peh. So therefore, he poured it onto his feet. He didn't want to pour into the bowls. But everyone noticed what he did. Everybody pelted him with their esrogim. Everybody was in their base of Mikdash with their esrogim, shachris, by the Shal Shachar. They had lulav and esrogim, and they saw the Kohen not doing Nisach Hamayim, so they pelted him with their esrogim. So they made sure that the Kohen should do it in Nisach Hamayim. So if it comes down on Shabbos, we said that it's all 7 days. Nisach Hamayim Shiva. What does it mean? They do it on Shabbos also. There's no reason not to do it on Shabbos. And any day that it comes out, whenever it comes out on Shabbos, you do Nisach Hamayim also. But you can't bring the water from the Shiloh that's coming out. That's going out of the Rishus Yachid. You can't out of Yerushalayim. So they would prepare the water from before. They would prepare. They would fill up from Erev Shabbos a chavis, not the tzlochas, but a chavis, some kind of a barrel. Doesn't mean a barrel like we think a barrel, a big huge barrel. A chavis is like a small kind of a container. It probably had a lid to it also. And that's why they needed to cover it, because they needed it for tomorrow, a golden chavis, but one that was not a kli shoyes. Any mukudeshes. The slochis that they used for Nisach Hamayim was a kli kodesh, a holy vessel. But here they dafka used dafka, not a holy vessel. And we'll see tomorrow why they dafka used any mukudeshes from the Shiloach, Erev Shabbos, and they would leave it in the chamber until tomorrow when they would do the korban tamid. They bring out the water and they would put it into slochis lazov, and they would do whatever they did on a regular day. If the water got spilled out by mistake, or giloy, if it got uncovered. And that has to do with the about giloy, that a snake is maybe drinks from wine and from water, and then there's going to be venom inside the water, and it's possible to use for the mizbech. Like it says right now, since there's a chash that the snake might have drank from it, so we're not going to put it onto the mizbech. The Gemara says that it's poison. We'll see other reasons. Rashi over here says interesting thing, that you're not going to have the shear of water, because some of it, if you're going to do a lug or 2 or 3 lugin, but a drop of it is going to be the venom. You didn't have the right shear.
But didn't they say there was no Akrab and Nachash in the Beis Mikdash, one of the 10 miracles?
It says that, I think it says that it didn't bite anybody. Lo hizik nachash v'akrab. But maybe they drank some water. Lo hizik. Maybe they would have drank. So don't use that water anymore. So what did it say? It told you how the whole side of Nisach HaMayim that you would take the water from the Shiloach, Tkiya, Trua Tkiya, and then they would go up to Mizbeach, the Kohen would go up to Mizbeach and turn to the left, and that's where you pour it onto simultaneously the wine and the water, the one of the water closer to the Mar, closer to the west, and the hooks are made out of silver or out of sid. What else did the Mishnah say? That if you did the wrong one, you say also. Rabbi
The
Yehuda
water is closer to the west, and when
Yes.
the wine is closer to the east.
Yes, Rabbi Yehuda says that it was
We
only
see
a
the
look,
reason
not 3 look. He didn't say any reasons. And I don't think we're going to see that. The look Rabbi Yehuda argues on 2 points that it was not 3 look, it was 1 look, and also was Shmini Atzeres also. They were choshet. Sometimes the Kohen didn't want to do it because they were stuki, so they made sure that everyone should see him doing it. On Shabbos, you would prepare the water from Erev Shabbos and put it in Klish Enem Makudash. If it got uncovered, then take from the Kior, and that would also be kosher. But the Chatchila, try to get it from the Mayan. The Gemara says, how do you know all this? So Rashi says, interesting thing, how do you know that you do Tkiya, Trua Tkiya? Rashi says, the whole question is, how do you know that you do Tkiya, Trua Tkiya? Amar Avena, the Amar Krua, V'shavta Mayim V'sasam, V'maynei Yeshua, that Shvi B'sasam. Rashi says, Tkiya, Trua Tkiya is the happiness. First says a simpler option, I think, that he says, how do you know he's taken from a Mayan? And then he says, V'maynei Yeshua. According to Taishvus, the question is how you know take it from a Mayan, from a spring, and the answer is because it says Mimanei Yeshua. According to Rashi, the Kashi is Tkiya, Trua Tkiya. How do you know you do it b'simcha? And the answer is because it says Ushav Tamayim B'Sasam. The next Gemara is Agadata.
That brings taken Maria.
Rashi says Tkiya, Trua Tkiya. Rashi says Tkiya, Trua Tkiya is simcha.
What's my reading?
What?
What's my
Marian is the Trua. Where does Rashi say what? You're going further, Betty. That's further. That Rashi. Rashi also on Amud Aleph. We'll scroll back to Amud Aleph. When it says in the Mishnah that Tkiya, Trua Tkiya, where's the Rashi?
First Rashi in the Gemara, the first one.
We just read that. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say anything that's simple.
Taku bariu mishum simcha. Here Rashi and Amud Aleph taku bariu mishum simcha. Dechsivu shav tamayim b'sasam. So Rashi says that the tkiya, trua tkiya, that's for simcha, and he says that's found in the Gemara. And the Gemara says, "But immediately it means how do you know you do tkiya, trua tkiya?" And the answer is shav tamayim b'sasam. That's what Rashi learns the Gemara. I had a difficulty because the Gemara said before that by his kifas harova, when you put the harova on the side of the mizbeach, also tkiya, trua tkiya, and there the Gemara had no problem. No issue with simcha over there. The Gemara doesn't say anything. So no kasha, but. The Taisa says here that the question was, how do you know that you do it from a Mayan? And the answer is because there's a Mayanei Yeshua. The Gemara continues. A story. This story is very, what would you say, mysterious stories. Probably esoteric. The Gemara says there are a lot of secrets in this Gemara. So
he mentioned this.
this one particularly, they say. So this is like you could say, superficially, it's a very funny story. The Gemara starts. There were 2 apikorsim. Chad Shmei Sasan, Chad Shmei Simcha. One's name was Sasan, one's name was Simcha. Amalei Sasan Simcha. Ana different minach. Sasan told Simcha, I'm better than you. Techsiv Sasan Simcha Yasigu. A pasuk in the Torah, and it says in Yeshaya, and it says they're going to get Sasan Simcha. The Sasan goes first, so I'm better than you. Sasan is more important than Simcha. Amalei Simcha Sasan. Ana different minach. I'm better than you. A different pasuk. Techsiv Simcha Sasan Yehudim. Simcha goes first, so Simcha goes before Sasan. So what is all that about? I don't know. They continued arguing. Amalei Sasan Simcha. One day they're gonna throw you out. So Rashi says they're gonna take you out of heaven. The word shavak means to leave. Like they're gonna leave you, and they're gonna make you to be a runner. Runner like parvanka is like a shliach. It means a runner, like someone who goes in front of the crowd, in front of the king. He runs ahead of him. So they're gonna take you simcha, and they're gonna make you to be the teitzeyu. They're gonna be the one who's gonna be leading us. Shavuot, they're going to make you. Parvanka, Rashi says, means a runner.
What are the meaning doing in heaven?
No. So yes. So yeah. So in the beginning, it talks about 2 minim. Over here, Rashi says seems to be talking about 2 angels. Rashi seems to say, but maybe you're right. That talks about the minim when they think they're going to be in heaven. I don't know. Again, the whole Gemara is definitely esoteric, And what does simcha mean? What does sason mean? And what is all this about? This is probably just to chazer it 40 times and daven to get the shot one day, either in this world or the world to come.
But I give it to them Bashat, and one gets Rashi says that Iker is that it's
You're in the Gemara before.
no.
The Gemara before, we finished that already. We finished. That's finished. Now we'll go Agarata. We're talking about Sasan and Simcha. So we're mentioning Gemara about Sasan and Simcha. Nothing to do with the Gemara before. The Pashtas, at least. Maybe if I don't know what I'm saying anyway, so maybe you're right. But in the Pashtas, that's a new story. So Simcha, they had a question, Simcha and Sasan, Simcha, which one is better? Then they're still debating, and Sasan tells Simcha, they're going to make you into a runner that's going to be going in front of the crowd. Amalei, Simcha Sasan, you're insulting me. One day they're going to take you or leave you, throw you out, and fill water with you. You're going to be the jug to put water into. So that's the end of that discussion, that debate. The Gemara continues. There was a certain Apikoros, again, his name was Sasan, maybe his name was before. He told her, Bavo, in the future, you, Am Yisrael, you're going to fill the water for me, like for my honor. Oh, doesn't it say that you're going to draw water for Sasan? He said, no, it doesn't say that. The comment different would have said then it would mean, like you said, that they're going to draw water to you for your honor. But it doesn't say that. It says bisasan. It means like the other one said before. The skin of you, of that man, your skin, we're going to make it into a jug and fill water with you. Mashke's skin. So all this, of course, needs explanation, and I don't know what it is, but the Gemara does say that he says, I think what subject it's talking about, which issue it's about, but the big secret's over here. Okay, the issue continued, that when he went up the ramp with a jug of water, he went to the left.
First of all, that's kind of humorous to read it.
Yeah, but that's not the pshat.
I mean, you can laugh at it.
Yeah, but that means that realize that it's something serious that we don't know what it is. It's clothed. This is what Chazal do when they have secrets that they don't want to say, Kabbalistic secrets. So they clothed it in riddles, and the riddle on the outside looks very funny. But realize that it's a riddle, and we don't know what we're saying. So we humbly bow our head and say, I don't know. It says in the Mishnah that when he went up to the Kevesh, he went up the ramp, and he turned to the left. The Brisa says, usually when you go to the Mizbeach, you go on the right side, and you go all around the Mizbeach. When you go up the Mizbeach, you turn right, and you go on to the Sovev, or to the Mizbeach, top of the Mizbeach, and you go all around, and you come down on the left side. With the exception of three things, that for three purposes, okay. Then you go up on the left side. And you go up on the left side, you don't go all around down the right side. When you go up on the left side, you go down the same way that you came up. What are these three things that you go up on the left? That's what we did in our Mishnah. You go right away to the left. Yain also. Every day when you did Nisach Yain, also they went to the left right away. And Ola Sof Keshrav Sabah Mizrach. There's a korban Ola Sof that's done on the Sovev, on the mid height of the Mizbech. There's a walkway that goes around the Mizbech, and usually it's done on the southeastern corner. But if there's Rab Sabah Mizrach, if there's too many kohanim over there waiting in line to do a Ola Sof, you're probably right, but I forgot. It does ring a bell, but I don't remember where we had it.
You took it and told the Zarnasa.
That's why. Very good. That he ate it by mistake, and it was. Why was it there? Because the chatas is usually there, and they had some others. Very, very good. There's a call. So here it says that if there were too many kohanim that were online waiting to do the others off in the southeastern corner, so it's also kosher on the southwestern corner. If you're taking the others off to do in the southwestern corner, you're going to go up to Mizbeach. You go to the left side. Go straight away to the left. Don't go to the right and go all around. It doesn't say in the Gemara why. Rashi says that the problem is that you have to go right. If you're going to go to the right and go all around the Mizbeach to get to the southwestern corner, you're going to go all around. So the water and the wine might get affected from the smoke that's on the Mizbeach. So then it might become ushan, and that's not good for the water or for the wine. And also the bird, that's a live bird, it might die from the smoke. So therefore, take it right away to the left, that you shouldn't have to go all around the Mizbeach. Someone asked me a question, I don't know the answer. The Gemara says in Yuma over there that the smoke did not scatter. So there shouldn't be any smoke all around, just straight up. So how come it would have affected the water and the wine and all the stuff? I don't know. Someone asked me that many years ago. I have written my Gemara, Yeshua Schwartz, I don't know
I
the
thought
answer.
the smoke only went up by the golden fat.
I don't think so. I think it's talking about the,
Because you put the Malayasha, it's called the,
that makes that it should go directly up. It shouldn't, but I think that even the Gemara says over there that, I think on the outside Mizbeach also. I think it says the Farish over there, even on the outer Mizbeach also. Elo Shayu Mashkim. The Mishnah said Machlokes if it was silver or was really sid, but it turned black because they poured wine. The Gemara says, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it doesn't make sense. One of them could have been silver looking, but the other one is only water, so it shouldn't have turned black. Bishlam with the yain mashkir. That's good. Rabbi Yehuda, you could say that the one of the wine became blackened, tarnished, because the wine that was poured into it. But the my mashkir, but the other one, the one only for water, so it just looked white. Why did it become black? The answer is, since the Mishnah says that with the Eved, if you switched it, they did to the wrong one, you say, so people weren't so careful. Sometimes the white one is also going to become black because sometimes they put wine into it. If you're not Yotze or Yotze, if someone did it, he did it. But the point is probably that since you're Yotze b'di'evet, so people weren't so careful. If they would have been not Yotze, they would have been careful not to do it. I guess that's human nature. If you know Yotze b'di'evet, so then you're not so conscious of it. So sometimes the other one of the water also became blackened because of the wine that sometimes was spilled into it. By mistake. Came in base chotmin. It had, and the Mishnah says that one was bigger than the one hole was bigger than the other, in order that both the wine and the water should empty out simultaneously. So the Gemara doesn't know why shouldn't it be simultaneously. The Mishnah had a machlokes how much water is there. Is there 3 lugan or 1 lug? So the Gemara thinks according to Rabbi Yehuda that there's 1 lug of water and 3 lugan of wine. Everyone agrees that there's a Revi'as Ahin, like Kevis Yoin, that the wine is always going to be 3 lug. So according to Rabbi Yehuda that the wine was 3 lug and the water was 1 lug, then it makes sense. You have to have a bigger hole that both of them should end simultaneously because it's 3 times the amount. So the Mishnah must be like Rabbi Yehuda. The Mishnah says that one hole was bigger than the other, must be Rabbi Yehuda, not Rabban. At the time, Rabbi Yehuda that only was a lug and the wine was 3 lugs. So it makes sense. You have to have a bigger hole that it should end simultaneously. Both of them are a lug, are 3 lugging. So what they should anyway be simultaneous. Why do you have to have one hole should be bigger than the other? The one says no. The wine is thicker and the water is thin. So we made a drop bigger, not much bigger, a drop bigger. That when you have these two, both the same amount, 3 lug, a liter of both. But since the wine is thicker, it'll take a bit longer to empty out. We wanted it to empty out exactly the same time, so we made the one of wine a bit bigger, drop bigger, the whole of the wine. They seem to be very small holes, tiny holes, I think. Not talking about a big spout, then takes a second either way. So probably not a big drain faucet. It was probably very, very small. And yet we made it enough. We measured it exactly. We calculated that the wine, which is a bit thicker, should still end simultaneously with the water. The Gemara now takes it even further. Not only that it could be Rabbanan, it's Dafka Rabbanan. Rashi says the difference between Rachav V'Katz means wide and narrow, and Av V'Dak means thick and thin. So the difference between wide and narrow is a bigger difference than thin and thick and thin. So the Gemara is going to say that according to Rabbanan, it was a very slight difference between the two holes, a very slight difference because both of them were the same amount, but the wine was a bit thicker. But so you needed a drop bigger hole. According to Rabbi Yehuda, that it was 3 times the amount, so it was a much bigger difference. So the Gemara is going to say that the word Av and Dak only applies to Rabbanan. Rabbi Yehuda would use the terminology of Rachav and Katza, but to show the much bigger difference between the two sizes of the holes. The Rabbi Yehuda, Rachav and Katza was like. Rabbi Yehuda's difference between the two holes was not Av and Dak. It was Rachav and Katza. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Shnei Kasvos. This word Kasvos, they say that it comes from the word Ksos HaNasach, and they say that it means Klishores. I don't know exactly if it means a different kind of kli. What?
What's exactly the show?
Kasvos, with a sin. Kasvos, not a shin, a sin. And that's based on the pasuk of Ksos HaNasach, but it says by the Lechem Aponim that it had sticks that would hold up the different breads on the shulchan. Over there it says Ksos, and whatever the translation of the word means, it sounds here like a klishores. That's how they translate it over here. There were 2 klishores over there. One was for the water, one was for the wine. Shalyain pia rochav. That's what the Gemara wants. The terminology rochav. Shalyain pia katzer. So when a Buddha is talking, he says differences between rochav and katzer. Kideshu shneim kulam basachas. That both of them should end simultaneously. But Amish said didn't use the word rochav and katzer. He used the word av and dak. So that's the term that the Rabbanan would say because there's only a difference between a thick wine, a thick liquid, and a thin liquid. That's very small. But Rabbi that it says 3 times the amount, he would have used the terminology of bracha ben kotzer. That's the end of the Gemara. And just to sum it up, before I forget, please, Emmanuel, please remind me when I finish the summary to say about what you said yesterday about sitting in the sukkah. If you're not going to eat, you say a bracha. That's what I remember. I don't forget. The Gemara spoke about Halal and Simcha, that it's 8 days, even Shmini Atzeres, the Gemara Drasha of Yisach Sameach, that is Marba and Ma'ai to come out that Shmini Atzeres is Chayiv and Simcha, but the first night of Yom Tov is night. And both, someone mentioned, I don't know if everybody heard it, Pesach Shavuos also, there's no mitzvah Simcha the first night, only from the day and on.
Unbelievable. All my life is thinking the other day, it was after the biggest first night.
Well,
It's the Raisa.
by the Karban Pesach,
It's the Raisa.
It was the rice,
It's sitting in sukkah.
but there's no mitzvah of Simcha.
Unbelievable.
Okay.
You have good wine,
No,
save
but it's
the
like-
day.
What?
You're
You have
eating
your
Karban
good
Pesach.
wine.
Yes, but it's not a mitzvah of Simcha Yom Tov. The mitzvah of Simcha Yom Tov is not the first night.
But isn't mitzvah of Basar Yom during the day?
It's on the day, it's not at night. That's the Gemara says. This is the Gemara right here. The Gemara says it's not the on 7 days. It says it'll be on 7 days. And Risach Sameach is the Shmini Atzeres, but it's not for the first night. That's the law, the first night.
Oh, wait a minute. Maybe he's talking about the-
But you're not, it's not, but it's not, you're not, there's no mitzvah of Simcha. You happen to have a carbon there. But there's more of the talks about it. It's not Tznicha B'Shas Simcha. Yeah, okay, let's point out it's not us to be B'Simcha, but it's not Chiv to be B'Simcha. The next Gemara talks about Sukkah Shabbat Ketzad. Have the Sukkah the whole 7 days. Don't take it apart, even if you finish eating on Hoshana Rabbah. Keep it around, you might need it still. But do take down the furniture down from 2.5 hours before Shkia in order to get ready for Shmini Atzeres. If you can use the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres also, make sure that it's not for the mitzvah, shouldn't be Baltosif. What do? Make a haircut that you're not using it for the mitzvah. Either open up a hole that's 4x4, or bring in a candle if it's a small sukkah, or bring in a dirty pot to show that you're not using it for the mitzvah of sukkah. In Eretz Yisrael, where you're doing all this on Hoshana Rabbah, to use it for Shmini Atzeres, no problem. You can take apart the sukkah, you could open up the hole, and it's not no problem to this is to make that hole on what?
No mitzvah to be in the sukkah on Simchas Torah. For us.
That's right. So therefore, on Hoshana Rabbah, when you want to use the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres, so you may open up a hole that's 4x4. There's no issa to do that on Hoshana Rabbah, still Chol Hamoed. But if you're in Chutz La'aretz and you have to sit on the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres and you want to use it for Simchas Torah, so you can't use the seitza of making a hole in the schach because you're not allowed to do that on Yom Tov. You can't take apart the roof on Yom Tov. So therefore, do the other eitzes of bringing the candle if it's a small sukkah, or bringing in a dirty pot if it's a big sukkah. This Hamayim was Shlosh Lugin, according to Tanakam, B'Bida says only one lug, and he brought it from the Shiloach. When they came into the Shamayim, they Tekiah through a Tekiah. When he went up to Kevesh, he went to the left in order that it shouldn't become Lushan, and they poured it into the two silver bowls. B'Bida says that it was Sid, and it got black because of the wine, and even the water one also sometimes was used for the wine because it had 2 holes, like Chot Medak, and Rashi says a spout, Taisa says no spout, and one was bigger than the other, in order that should end simultaneously. The Gemara says even though they're both the same amount of liquid, only there were 3 lugin, but the wine is thicker, and therefore the hole was a drop bigger. Rabbi the hole that was much bigger because he holds that it was 3 lug in contrast to only 1 lug of water. They would put the water into the one which is more west, and the wine into the one which is more east. But if you mixed it up, you still Yosef. Rabbi says only 1 lug of water, and it's for all 8 days. We don't pass him like him. We told the Manasseh to pick up his hands. Everyone should see it because the Stukim didn't do it. And one time it happened, and they pelted him with their esrogim. Agav, the Gemara says in Yuma, the Gemara learns out from here that they only did the Nitzach Hamayim in the morning because they with esrogim, not the esrogim. But in Tomer Shabbein Abayim, they didn't do Nitzach Hamayim. It's only done in the morning. It's not done again by the Tomer Shabbein Abayim. On Shabbos, you do the same thing, but you have to bring the water from Erev Shabbos, and they would leave it in a bleach that's not Makudash, and make sure that it doesn't get uncovered. If it got uncovered or spilled out, you could bring from the Kior. If it's Megula, it's possible for them as Be'er. The Gemara says Shaftamayim B'Sason is the source. Rashi says that each do Kior through Kior. Taisa says that you should get it from a Mayan. Then you have the stories of the Tuminim. The first one is about who's better, Simcha or Sason. Sometimes it says Sason first, sometimes it says Simcha first. Then it says that Simcha, they're going to make him to be a parvanka, to be a runner. And Sason, they're going to fill him up to be a jug for the water. The Min thought that he's a big guy, that they're going to pour water for him. He said, no, they're going to pour water with you. And the last Gemara, that was the last Gemara, I said that already? Yeah. And then afterwards it says all over. Usually you go to the right of the Mizbeach, but for 3 things they went to the left, and that is the Nisach Hamayim, Nisach Hayayim, and all those offshores of Mizrach, that it shouldn't get affected from the smoke if they go all around to the right. It got black. The Gemara says even the one of the water sometimes got black because they did the wine by mistake because Yosef with the Eved, And we said the last thing about the Chot Medak and the Konti Aviuda was much different, much bigger hole because it was 3 times the amount that comes simultaneously finished. And the Konti Rabbanan was a drop bigger because the wine was thicker.
Rebbe,
Yes, please.
yeah, before the halacha, I just wanted to support you in what you said to the oilam. The fact that Sasam V'Simcha is a Sasam Sugya is supported by the fact that the Ben Ish Chai, who has 2 volumes on Sukkah, doesn't mention anything on that. What he does go to town on is Nisuk HaMayim and how Mayim is Torah and how Tzluchis is Tatzliach and how Daf gets done before Simchas Torah. And then he has all kinds of Ramazim, which include a lot of stuff about Choitim being the sense hareach, and that in the time of Mashiach, there's Pesukim to say that it's Al Yedei the Reach, we're going to raise ourselves up to a higher level. So I just wanted to support you on that, because if there's nothing in the Ben Ish Chai, it means it's not for our intelligence.
Okay, yes, you go. The point you said yesterday, the Mishnah Berurah says at the end of Tafresh Lamates that if you go into the sukkah and you're not going to eat in this sitting, everyone holds you say a bracha. And that's how he says in the Mishnah Berurah. Yesterday, Rav Manuel asked that the Sha'atzion on the next halacha, he seems to contradict himself. So, L'chara, he's right, that is a contradiction. The Mishnah Berurah on the same Chayadam is very tamua, that next halacha, he says something that contradicts his understanding. I saw the Dirshu Mishnah Berurah, they asked the kasha that the Mishnah Berurah seems to contradict himself. So,
what I will do is I will email Rabbi Rosner and ask him, how does he come out like the Rosh and Rabbeinu Tam instead of like Tosfos or the Rambam? Because
the Mishnah Berurah is going in the sheet of Rabbeinu Tam. They're not coming to argue. They say there are those that don't hold that it's Rabbeinu Tam at all, and like you say to me, they are grew up people that even if they can eat later on, as soon as they come into the sukkah, they say bracha right away.
Yeah, but the Rosh is quite mistaber also.
But even the Rosh Rabbeinu Tam, the way the post come understand that there's a huge chiddush to say that if you're not going to eat, you still don't say a bracha. Why not? You're doing a mitzvah right now. Just because you're not, they say from one eating to the next eating, if you have Mesiach Das for 5 hours in between, this bracha still takes effect. It's a very big chiddush. The Chayadam is the pashtas.
Yeah, but they are muvusas on the idea of what is the ikr, and they hold that the ikr kavias, at least Rabbeinu Tam, the ikr kavias is by Suda.
That's only a reason that they say the bracha later and not earlier, but not to not say it at all. If in this sitting I'm not going to say bracha at all, how can he say not to say bracha?
I rest my case. I'll say what you said to Rabbi Rosner and see what he says back, and then we'll all be in the discussion.
Okay, that should go. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
You want hot chocolate today?
No, thank you. No, thank you. Thank you.
You on a diet?
I